Ready.
All right, we got 6 people in with us. Welcome, everyone. We'll give it just another minute and see who else might join. Maymouna, at the top of your screen, it shows some people and it has a number beside it. I think that's how we see who's with us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it is time. So we've got a few people with us. Welcome, everyone. If you don't mind, if you could just drop your name and where you're coming from in the chat before we get started. Just your name and where you're coming from. I'll do the same.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, we got Andrew. Hey, Andrew. Louise, welcome. Glad you're here. Hey, Timo. Glad you're joining us. Oh, Emily, I'm so glad you're here. I'm currently in the US. We lost Maymouna. She'll be back on in just a moment, and she'll share her screen. Just got back from Egypt, so I feel like every time that I'm sharing in the chat where I am, it's from somewhere different. Give it just another minute. Let Maymouna join back again.
Guys, I am so sorry.
It's okay. It's a new platform. Don't worry. I was like, oh, there she goes. She'll be back in a
I
minute.
went to hit chat.
It's okay. I'll stop sharing and let you share. Don't worry about it.
Ah, this
All
is
right,
why
go
it's
ahead
so great to
and
have two people on.
Oh, we got a few more people joining us.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome,
Welcome. We're
welcome,
so glad you're
welcome.
here. All right, Maimuna's going to share a screen, and I'll go ahead and start with introduction. So I'm Lauren Jones. I'm an educational and leadership consultant, and I'm so happy to be here with my friend and colleague, Maymouna Sakho. We are co-hosting this webinar, and we're really fortunate that we've got 9 amazing women from around the world that have come together to host this free webinar series for you all. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to let Maymouna share the screen and talk about our sponsor, Equip My Schools, who was very generous to sponsor this webinar so that learning is free to any school around the world. We're hoping that not only will international schools engage with this learning, but also local and public schools as well. And all these recordings will go on a YouTube channel as a module of learning. So your teams, if you found one or more of these sessions helpful, your teams will be able to access that learning. Maymouna, you want me to share?
Can you see?
Nope.
Okay, 1 second. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm not going to kick you out again.
We were all here. You got kicked
There we
out.
go.
You were
There we
just
go.
like, what? We were just missing you. All right, there we go. Perfect.
Um, so thank you so much for that introduction. I'm so happy to be here with my friend and colleague and everything student support related. And let's get into the conversation because we want to make sure that you get the content that you need and you can be on your way. And hopefully you're going to institute the things that you hear about today, or maybe it's going to reinforce the things that you already were doing. So either way works, you know? And so this is the second session. So we have 4 more sessions coming up. You will have Lauren next Tuesday and Zaina, my mom's name, the Tuesday after that. And we have a couple more ladies. And so the cool thing about this initiative is that it's all women led workshop leaders. And so, you know, it's all about supporting women. So thank you for coming on and doing that and getting the content. And so here are some of the different organizations that we represent as entrepreneurs. And again, thank you so much to Equip My School for their sponsorship for these webinars. So let's get started. So we're going to talk
Maymouna,
today
can I
about.
say sorry, can I say one thing about that last
Sure,
slide?
sure, for
Be
sure.
sure that, if you want to come to the other sessions, be sure you register for each session individually, because you won't have a
Yes.
calendar invite, but it is the same link each week. And I will say with Equip My Schools, if you are looking for, supplies and materials that will help build your student support program in terms of actual tangible supplies that build those spaces and those rooms, Equip My Schools is a great option for that. So sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
maybe
No, no,
I'm
no,
muted.
you're good. You're good. You're good. So today we're talking about tracking student progress and thinking about what the research says, examining your practices, and hopefully, as I said, validating, confirming, supporting, or learning some new ways to be able to track your students' progress. So in the chat, I love for you to take a minute and tell me, what does progress monitoring look like in your context? So I'll give you about a minute and a half to kind of think about that. What does progress monitoring in your context looks like? And so Lauren has the chat that she's looking through, and we'd love for everyone to participate in responding to that. What does progress monitoring look like in your context?
And if you're unfamiliar with the term progress monitoring, we're talking about data that you're collecting regularly on your kids. So,
Exactly.
how do you know if they're learning what you think they're learning? Right, Maymouna?
And if you're unfamiliar, that could be the response.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. All right. Looking at
So,
the chat, I'll share with you what people are
yeah,
sharing.
yeah. Uganda's here. Yay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have representation from all over.
good. So, what does progress monitoring look like within your context? So, another 30
Right.
seconds or so to think about it.
Timo says it looks like growth. Are students progressing and growing from where they were to where they are now, whether academic or non-academic data?
Hmm.
Exactly. We're not just progress monitoring academic data. That's right.
And I'm glad he mentioned that.
Me too. Louise says map data 3 times a year, observational data, summative assessments, reading and math benchmarks, socio emotional data is collected by counselors.
Okay.
Magume, I hope I'm saying your name right, says progress monitoring is, in my context, we're looking at how one is shifting from one state to another state, from potentially weak to moderate. Okay.
Okay, great. I love those responses. Do you have one more to share with me, Lauren?
Oh, there's a few more. Yeah, Lydia. Oh, we've got more people on. Oh, Kelvin's with us. Hey, Kelvin.
Hey,
Lydia
Calvin.
says, yeah. Lydia says, oh, Lydia says she's at the dentist. Lydia, don't worry. Listen in. It's fine. You're doing your own
That's some
progress
progress
monitoring.
monitoring going on with your teeth right there.
Exactly. And Juana, I don't know if I'm saying your name right either. I'm sorry if I'm not. Says map data, IXL, various observations. Kelvin says, honestly, it's case by case based on the needs of the students. However, we have definitely started to use Google Sheets to track data against the ILP goals.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
great. So I'm hoping that we'll walk through the session and we'll look at some practical tools. We'll think about some ways in which we can use those tools to help us goal set. And then ultimately, for me at least, and I'm pretty sure most of you who are on here listening in on this conversation, you want to be able to take all this information and have some decisions that are data driven. So why do we progress monitor? Like what is it exactly, right? So the research shows that progress monitoring is anything that could be frequent, brief, systematic assessments that will improve the outcome one way or the other. It could be based on literacy, math, social emotional, maybe there's executive functioning as well that you're looking to improve within a student or a group of people at your school. But is any of those ways in which you're looking at systematic ways to assess so that you can improve an outcome? So let's look at the first strategy. Let's get into it. So the first strategy that you can think of for progress monitoring is that of curriculum-based measurement, so CBM. And basically, you're looking at CBM, and the reason why it works is because you want to be able to predict your students' achievement based on the data and make some projections about, okay, if I target this particular area, or if I guide my student in this particular area, I can tell by this target and this guide that I can get some student achievement. And so the research that's out there goes from 1984 from the Fuchs and Deno and Merkin study that showed that CBM, or curriculum based measurement, has a large impact on the pedagogy, the student achievement, and overall the learner's awareness of where there is that they have the gaps. The study also found that regularly administering curriculum aligned assessments improves instructional practices for your teachers. It overall enhances the student performance. And again, it really gives a heightened awareness for students about their own learning and their own progress. And you can read about that in the SAGE journals. So, what about the measuring of progress, right? So, what are we actually looking for? Again, it's systematic data-based decisions. You're giving feedback that includes looking at skills and analyzing what you see in front of you. And also you're making some instructional recommendations based on the data. So here's an example of exactly what I'm talking about. Here's a passage and you are wanting to assess some literacy goals. So maybe it's oral reading fluency, it could be decoding. But for us in this activity right now, we're going to focus on oral reading fluency. And why oral reading fluency? Oral reading fluency and the rate at which a student reads is a really good indicator as to whether or not they are at level with their reading. Simply put, if a student is reading at a pace or a rate that is below their age or grade that they're at, chances are that maybe if you rule out multilingualism or, A, B, C, D in the third, if everything is the same, chances are maybe that could be an indicator that they might need some targeted instruction. So you have this example, you would give this to the student, they would sit and read it. And then you as the teacher, you have your own copy. And I think you've all seen this, running records. You can create something like this. You can find it rather easily on the internet. It's also available on ChatGPT if you want to create something in that space. And so you're reading, you're listening for the errors within the 1 minute time period. You're recording their words per minute, and you're also comparing that to the benchmark. Looking at the data, here's what you got. The student reads out loud for a minute. His or her score was 78 words per minute. The benchmark was 115. This is given in the spring semester of grade 4. What interpretations in the chat can you make about the data? I'm sorry, excuse me. Using the data, what interpretations could you make about the students? What assumptions can you make? So I'll put the data back so you can see it. Let's do like a minute for that. Lauren, thanks for monitoring the chat for me. See if you have any responses there. The question is, what interpretations can be made from this data about the student? So I'll give you one. You can interpret that the student is below benchmark and might be at risk. Again, the benchmark score is 115. The student read at a 78 words per minute. So it's about 40 words below the benchmark, more or less. And then because of that, you can consider that they will need some instructional supports, either guided oral reading or some sort of fluency practice. And then you can also take that information, so you have your instructional supports, but then you can think about, okay, what strategy do I want to use to implement these supports? It could be a small group intervention where they're practicing their guided reading, oral reading skills, fluency practice. It could be a one-on-one. What I used to do is I had a student who came to me every morning for 10 minutes and we cold read and we did repeated reading, and we did it for about 6 weeks. That's a standard 6 to 8 weeks. If you don't know, but that is a standard 6 to 8 weeks for an intervention. And then we then took the information and saw what the new data suggested. And so again, that's just the strategy, but the support would be you're wanting to support the guided oral reading and the fluency.
Mhm. There's a few things in the chat, Maymouna.
Go
Simon
ahead.
said there that, they noticed fluency.
Hmm.
Juana said that the student is below expectations. Louise shared that the student's below the benchmark. Deletions and insertions of suffixes makes me wonder about attending skills. Emily
Hmm.
shared, oh, Emily asked a question. Would only one data point like this one lead to an intervention? That's a great question.
That's a great question. No, one data point should not lead to an intervention right away. Generally speaking, and I'm going to use that word generally very loosely because I think it depends on resources, both in personnel as well as material. But generally speaking, you're going to want to triangulate the data. So if you have two, three, four different ways that you're assessing reading. So maybe you're assessing oral reading fluency, and then you're assessing vocabulary, and then you're assessing ability to comprehend. And those three different domains of reading shows you that the student is below benchmark, then yes, you're going to want to start planning for intervention. So you want to triangulate the data as much as possible. And so just one generally wouldn't be enough. But it could be enough to implement if you don't have the resources, as I said, or the personnel. It could be enough for you to start monitoring the child so that when you get the extra data, you can then make some decisions about what instruction will look like for them. I answered your question. Okay. So here are some places that you can go to have tools that are specific for curriculum based measures. So I ordered it for you by free 99. I love free 99. You don't have to spend much money, but you have to do a little bit of due diligence to make sure that I think the problem that we sometimes have is just a fact. A lot of the content and a lot of the ways in which we access information resources is very American based. And if we're working internationally, you also want to take into context the place where you work. So one way is you could get the stuff that is available is usually going to be from the US or other English speaking countries, or you can make your own tools knowing what it is that you have to do. You need to get the benchmark words per minute if that's what you're doing for literacy. If it's a math task, whatever it is, you need to create it so that is it if you don't want what's out there, again, because it's going to be very one centric, but get the data points and then you can create the tools yourself. But you have free options at top and then you have more of the paid options at the bottom. And if you want some information, like personally offline, I'm not a seller for any of these, but I have used many of them. So if you're thinking about any of the ones on the list, I can give you a little bit of feedback in terms of my experience with it. Another way in which you want to think about, and if you've been in my other workshops, you've probably seen this slide before. These are different, similar to the first one. These are different ways in which you can monitor and you can triangulate. So M class is similar to Dibbles, which is literacy. Letters is modeled after the science of reading. You have the PASS test, which is a phonics assessment. You have the MAP assessment. Most people use it from 2 on up, 3 times a year. There's a reading component to it. K through first, there's a screener that allows you for the alphabet and the sounds. And so you can do that. Hegarty is also aligned to the science of reading. If you're at a school that follows Cambridge, they also have an assessment component to the things that they offer, and so does Singapore Math. So there's ways in which there are tools that already exist with these different programs, so you don't have to always recreate it. But again, if you're thinking about the context that you're in, which you should, you can also create your own materials. Okay, so that's the first one. Strategy is curriculum-based measurement tools. Quick, ongoing check, it tracks learning over time. So frequency is important when it comes to this. So pick a day or a couple of days where you're providing the instructional strategy. And then I used to do every Friday. Every Friday, the kids knew that we would have to come. We would do a quick CBM. I would chart it. I would make a little line graph for them. They would see where they were from the beginning, and then over time, I would have 6 to 8 weeks of data, and they could see their growth. And so that's something that I think if you do, the kids will also be interested in seeing their results. The second strategy is thinking about the goal setting, right? So you've got these curriculum-based measurements, you've triangulated the data, and so what does that all of that mean? What is it that the student has to actually accomplish? And so next is thinking about, well, how can we goal set using SMART goals? I like SMART goals. I think people have different ways of, articulating. When you have an ILP, we talk about SMART goals a lot because, if it's not attainable, achievable, or time bound, you're really just creating goals with nowhere for them to go. So I really like SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And here's another one. So again, same student that we were looking at. Now we have, let's say we have multiple data points. I'm going back to the reading that they were doing. You still have their interpretation that we just shared. So your question is, what could be a SMART goal that you would create for the student? So again, this is the interpretation of the data. So I'd like you to create a SMART goal. So a SMART goal would be specific, measurable, something that they can achieve. Is it realistic? Is it something that they need? Is it relevant to what it is that they have to sort of accomplish or overcome? And what is the time that you are associating it to it? Is it within 6 months, within 8 weeks, within a year? What are the realistic parameters that you're putting around there? So I'll give you about a minute and a half.
Maymouna, I was just at a school last week and we wrote SMART goals with all the kids as part of their orientation week. Every
Oh,
kid,
that's
right?
lovely.
It's so important. And
That's
Aisha
lovely.
just said in the chat, um, well, she was responding to the last part as well, and we didn't get to that. But then she also said she loves SMART goals.
Good. I'm glad you do.
Mhm.
Which Aisha is this? Is this Aisha? I have an Aisha that I know. Aisha, where are you calling him from?
I think she might be in Saudi if she was with us last week, if it's the same. Yeah, Jeddah.
Okay. Okay, nice. Hi, Aisha. All right, so I'll give you guys another half an hour. Oh, half an hour. Another 30 seconds.
It's
What
a lot of
smart
wait
goal?
time.
What smart goal could you create for this student? I know it's not as easy, huh? Like you have to really kind of think about it. I'll show you mine's in a minute after I give you guys some wait time. Okay, so
And
here's
I'll
mine.
call. Okay, sorry.
So by the end of the spring semester, 12 weeks, thinking that you have 8 weeks of intervention, and sometimes you have, as we all do in our international education institutions, there's always interruption. So we're saying by 12 weeks, Maya will increase their oral reading fluency from 78 to 95 as measured by the weekly CBM probes. So this would be the SMART goal that I created for the student. So I'm curious to hear yours. If anyone would be so
Oh, here we go.
okay.
That Louise just dropped this in the chat. She said the student will improve their oral reading by increasing the words per minute from 78 to 100 by the end of the first semester as measured by Dibbles.
Oh, good. Okay. Very
Great.
specific. Yeah.
Yep. Juana said student A can improve their score by 20% within 6 to 8 weeks. And you just put
Okay.
whatever measurement. Yeah. And Timo said student will read at X words a minute with X percentage accuracy by the end of the term. Right. You know
What
exactly what
so one thing I would add, Timo, to yours is what are you using to measure? What will be your both Timo and Juana, it'd be good if someone else was reading this, because sometimes that happens too. We implement SMART goals and maybe someone else is carrying out the actual intervention. And so one thing I would add to both of your goals is maybe you can have the measurement tool that the person will use to help the student achieve this goal. So it could be a CBM, it could be Dibbles, it could be whatever, but I would add that to yours if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yes. Okay, so takeaway. You want to involve students, which is exactly what Lauren just gave you as an example of her experience at a school last week. And by involving the student in creating the SMART goals, as you know, it motivates them and it gives them ownership of their own learning. You can I've done this as little as like first graders. I've done it with first graders and I've done it all the way up to like 10th graders. And I think the language just has to shift depending on the group of students that you have in front of you. With my first graders, it was a lot of happy faces and smiles. And it was, there was a couple of letters and drawing in and coloring in things that they had to accomplish. And with my upper 10th grade students, ninth grade students, I use the language of where they were in terms of their learning. And so you can make it adaptable depending on the age group. I should ask the question, could we also use Chanel? Yeah, any reading assessment that Chanel reading assessment. Yes, you can use Chanel reading assessment. Uh if if it provides exactly what it is that you need. So let's say you're measuring oral reading fluency and you can find it in Chanel, absolutely use it. Or if there's an area of the student need that you find within Chanel, you can absolutely use it. Yes. Most of these programs, everyone who's on, they're measuring the same thing. It's just how they market it and the fact that they want you to spend more or less money. But they're pretty much measuring the same thing. Oral reading fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, phonics, decoding, encoding. And then some of them maybe they might offer writing as well. It's all the same. So don't feel like you have to, I think it's a preference of what you might be accustomed to and maybe what you can afford realistically. So strategy number 3, formative assessment and feedback. So formative assessment and feedback, what does the research say? So Black and Williams in 1998 said that their research found that it significantly raises student achievement. Some of the tools that you might see being used, exit tickets, digital quizzes. Oh, did I give you away? Let me not say anything. I think I gave it away. What
Oh
are
no.
some what are what are what are some formative assessment tools that you have used yourself or you have observed others use? I feel like I gave you a little bit away. I was hoping that you would share with me your experience. So if you didn't hear me, that's great, but maybe you did. But what are some assessment tools, some formative tools that you've used? So I'll give you one, exit tickets. I like to use those all the time. Oh, Simon says, is anyone using Raz? Yes, I've also used Raz at my former school too. And so a lot of the things that we're talking about, they have it available. They have the oral reading fluency. They have all those other things. So you can sign up for that as well. So what are some assessment tools? So I gave mine away. I said exit tickets. Put that in the chat. I'm curious as to what yours are. And so I'll just go back here. Specific feedback. So that's what that is. Specific feedback, right? So,
Yeah,
so I just has
quizzes.
quizzes, tickets. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You see it.
Good, good,
Okay.
good. Yeah. Maybe we'll take one more.
There's also like the whiteboards, Maymouna, like I'll answer whatever question, like real quick, hold it up, and you can just know right away who's got it and who doesn't.
Yes. And then I think in those instances though, you need to be able to react quickly, or you need a way of taking that feedback and be able to inform your next steps.
Yep. Oh, Emily shared some good ones.
Okay, these
One-to-one
are really great.
conferencing, Kahoot. Oh, think, pair, share.
Yeah, these are great. Um, all of the things that you've listed, everyone, really, they could be applicable to any grade level within education. I think sometimes we think that the tools that we use in the lower school doesn't necessarily have to apply to the middle or upper school. And actually, I think the lower school does this really well because, the feedback can also be very much like fun and interactive. Think, pair, share, exit tickets, and sometimes when we get upper into the upper grades, we're literally writing the feedback on a piece of paper, or we're giving them oral feedback. But this can also be something quick that you might be doing in elementary that's also could be modeled and applicable to the upper school. So I told you what the research said. We've listed some tools in the chat. And so here are some tools if you haven't already listed these. So exit tickets, digital quizzes, Kahoot, Google Forms, Minimeter. I have a friend that should be the spokesperson for Minimeter. They love using this tool. This is the only tool that they use for formative feedback. Traffic lights, self-checks, checklists, self-reflection. You guys have listed a lot of the things that are on my list as well. And the takeaway that I want you to have from being able to use formative feedback is that it should be frequent and it should be able to offer you immediate insight about whether or not your student has grown or is understanding the concept or the skills. And then you can adjust, and you can adjust right away, right? So that's the beauty of formative feedback. Lauren, did you see anything interesting in the chat that you?
There was just I didn't know about the 2 stars and a wish. So I just learned a new one. And I'm making a Padlet for us for everyone that participates in these. So I'm trying to add them all to the Padlet as well. So
Okay,
people will
great.
have the resources at the end. Yep.
Um, Kambol, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I used to always use Jamboard, but I think Jamboard has discontinued. Is that right? But that also used to be my go-to too.
It did. Canva has a whiteboard. So if you use Canva, you can put a whiteboard in and it's kind of like Jamboard where people can put sticky notes and things in, even images, which is really good for kids if they're not writing necessarily, but
Mhm.
they could choose an image to put in the whiteboard.
That's great. Okay, so let's take a minute, and I'm sure, this goes without saying. Fig Jam is cool too. I've used that. I've used that as well. And my question to you is how can you use data to drive decision making? So we're still looking at our student, and I know I've given you one data point. We've got the one data point. We've got the SMART goals that we created for him or her or they. And so how can you use those pieces of information to be able to now guide some decisions about data? So, I really like visuals, and I like data that teachers can see, and it allows, in my opinion, for quick sort of running through and looking at things and recognizing that, oh, this is an area of celebration for the students. Oh, this is an area of growth that maybe I need to focus more on with this student. I don't have the rights to share it, but when I get the rights, I will definitely share it with Lauren, and you'll get it in the Padlet. In my previous school, we had a data tracker. The data tracker had all 300, 400 kids in elementary school. It was ordered by grade. The person who created it, I became the data keeper, but the person who created it probably spent hundreds of hours on it because you would put in the data and then it would highlight red, blue, as you guys know the colors, or maybe you're not familiar with the colors, but blue being above benchmark, green being at, red being below, and yellow being approaching. And as soon as you put in that data, I could see exactly where the students were. And if we have time before the end of the call, I'll give you a little sneak peek if I can. I've already taken out the information that would be self-identifying, but it really offered the teachers A couple of things we use that data. It offered me an insight as to teachers in terms of professional development, to be honest. Because if I was looking at data from math and I had three different data sources for math on that document, and my kids were yellow and red, or most of the kids were yellow and red, I wondered about, the instructional practices in the classroom. I really did. Um, it also allowed me to be able to see the growth that the students had. And then I could also celebrate that with their parents. Because you can't, a visual is something that people can just see and pick up right away. And the last thing that I believe that the visual allowed me to do was to look at the outliers. And so there were some kids that, maybe they had a bad day when they were being assessed, or, maybe there was something going on in their family situation that caused, the data to look the way it did. But for whatever reason, the pattern and the outlier, what I know them to be as in terms of performer might look different. And so it allowed me to be able to see that right away. And so having like a data dashboard or some sort of visual tracking, I would say would be crucial if you're trying to use your data to decision make, because then it allows you to analyze the data. And another thing that I've done, and that I did include it. Sorry guys, it's there. Look. So I did get permission, I forgot. So it's there. And I did look at the slides before, but it's been a long day. So here's what I'm talking about. And so you have the middle of the year, the beginning of the year. This is map. This is two different pieces of information. And then I would analyze some of this. I create a summary for the data committee. And if you don't have a data committee, if you're the only one on your data committee, I think it's really important to look at that information and really kind of make some assumptions and some projections. It's really important. And then you can disseminate the information to your teachers. You can share it with your leadership, and it could really make some decisions. What you see in front of you is one aspect of a document that stretched, as I said, from pre-K to fifth grade. And it allowed us, again, professional development. We had a professional development session about math for all the teachers. And then we taught them some differentiated strategies that were not being used for whatever reason, or there was a hesitant because some people just did not feel comfortable teaching math. And it kind of reflected in the scores of the kids on the different assessments within particular classes and grades. Another thing that we did with the data was it allowed us to say, okay, the science of reading was one aspect of which we wanted to make sure more teachers had more information about. And therefore, that was one area where we did a 6-month study, and everybody took the courses for science of reading. And also we had a case study going on with particular students in our school. And so those are just two ways where we took the data, we analyzed it, and then we sort of allowed it to help us inform some of our decision. Emily has a question. She said, you mentioned wondering about the instructional practices in that class or the grade level. I wonder if you could address how high quality tier 1 instruction fits into this conversation. That is a great question. I think what often happens in schools when we think about neurodiversity or student support is that we have students or a student who's not performing well, and automatically they are now assigned to the learning support or the ELO caseload. Before we even think about that, or unless the student comes in with a learning plan, we need to seriously consider, well, what does the high quality teaching and learning, so teaching and learning, like high quality teaching and learning, what does it look like on a tier 1 level? So for everyone who's on the call, tier 1, we're talking about everyone in the classroom. What is happening for everyone in the classroom? And for me, high quality teaching and learning is that, number one, at least the leadership has actually trained everyone in those classrooms to be able to teach phonics effectively. If we're talking about the lower grades, uh, everyone knows how to make sure that students can comprehend. They're using visualization, predicting, summarizing, all the different ways that you could comprehend a text. If it's math, we are making sure that all teachers know or can identify how to teach number fluency, because that's something that I think a lot of us are struggling with, how to teach that to kids. How can we teach computation in different ways so that students' way of thinking is also being considered? So on a tier 1 level, I think it's making sure that if the teacher doesn't have the skill set, that the leadership team is spending some time professional development, growing those skill sets for the teachers. So it might mean that they have someone coming into the classroom doing a demo lesson so they can actually show them what it looks like. It could mean that when you plan within your planning, you're being intentional about making sure that you're collaborating and you're co-teaching, because co-teaching can still be considered tier one. It just depends on what it looks like within the context. And then I think you also need to think about how you're partnering students and pairing students, and that could also be a tier one strategy. So all of it is happening within the classroom. Um, and then I think the way that this addresses instructional practices, Emily, is that if you've provided all these tools to your teachers, and then the scores are still showing that there is some room to grow, then I think we need to examine A, are the instructional practices, that's what I said, are the instructional practices in the tier one classroom, are they really being are they effective? You might have to sit in and actually observe what is actually happening during the lessons for reading, what is actually happening during the lessons for math. How come the kids are showing up on the assessments in the way that they show up on the assessments? Where is the breaking down here? What's happening? And then I think once you have all that information and you've ruled out that it's not instructional practices, maybe it is actually the students in the classroom. I think then you need to explore learning support. You need to bring them into the conversation and see how you can support the teacher, but also support the students in the classroom too. I hope I answered your question, Emily. It was very long, but I hope I answered your question. There we go. And there's a session coming up.
Perfect.
All right. So the takeaway is that, as I said, I love visuals. I just showed you one that I've used in the past as a person who analyzed the data and shared it with the data committee and the teachers. And I love it because it makes it really accessible and tangible for students, parents, and faculty. It allows you to really think about like potential professional development opportunities that you might want to create for your staff. And it also, tells you some specific areas that you might want to focus on from the beginning to the middle of the year or the long stretch from the middle of the end of the year. So that's why I like those so much. Okay, so my fifth strategy, I talked about it in the last one, but it's those data committees. So you are a teacher in your classroom, you've assessed all your students. You shouldn't be the only one looking at that data. You should really be in some sort of professional learning community where everyone is reviewing the data together. You're making some assumptions, you're making some projections, and you're thinking about how, you can make collective progress on a class, grade, or whole school level so that the data is of use, that you're just not assessing kids to death. Like you're actually taking that data and you're trying to truly inform like the whole school plan of where we're headed, academics wise. So nothing surprises you. That's the idea. Nothing surprises you because you've been having these ongoing conversations with the data review committee. So some of the key people that might be on the committee and the way I've seen it done, and Lauren, you can speak to it too, ELL personnel, a learning support personnel, someone who's in a decision-making capacity. And I say the third one because perhaps the conversation would be, I think we might want to have some professional development on this particular area. And so you need someone who's sitting at the table who has that power to say, okay, yes, let's look at the calendar. Let's see how we can get this done, either if it's in-house or out-house or whatever it is that you decide to do. And then the homeroom teacher for sure. Sometimes I've seen people include specialists, art, music, PE. Um, and sometimes I've also seen if you have it at your school, some schools are small, so maybe they don't have that, counselors as well. So if you have a counselor available, they should be at the data committee meetings because they offer an insight and anecdotes about the students that maybe you might not have that information and that preview. And it would add more flavor to the conversation that you would be having.
Yeah, exactly. And even I've seen with small schools, sometimes it's hard to get everyone in a room as well. So people use feedback forms for those meetings if you can't have everyone there to at least get the specialist feedback on a student of concern or on the data review as well, if it's
Mhm.
just not possible to get everyone in the room at the same time. But no, what you're talking about, Maimuna, is what I work with schools on exactly, setting up these systems, being intentional about looking at the data. Why collect the data if we're not having meaningful discussions around it? And
Right.
even, I mean, the schools I'm working with, we develop frameworks around what those conversations look like so
Exactly.
you don't get caught talking about one kid. You know those meetings where you're like, and it's been 25 minutes and we're still talking about the same the same data point.
Yeah, and so one advice I would have for you, if you've done it or if you want to do it better, frameworks and protocols. And so protocols, I love protocols. We do it all the time with the kids. Why not apply the same thing within a professional learning community? I love Think, See, Wonder. I love I think the 2 star and a wish could be a protocol as well. So there's many out there. I think you need to think about what would work within your context. And then I think you can select one and use that protocol to be able to guide the discussion so that you have the time and the flexibility to look at the data, which is the majority of the conversation, but also the next steps, which is the decision making part, because that's very important. Okay, no questions.
I don't see anything in the chat.
All right. So the takeaway with this one is thinking about collaboration. So you have a team of professionals in your school that come from different disciplines, backgrounds, but you're all coming together, you're making decisions together, and you're encouraging conversations together so that you can support the growth of your students. That's the ultimate goal. You want your students to grow. And for me, and Lauren would agree, we don't want students to be in learning support forever. That is not what learning support is for, or student support or neurodiver, whatever terminology you use in your context. We want to be able to. I got a comment here. Please, what does it say? I can't. I
Okay,
can't read
return to the previous slide.
this one.
I think, yeah, there you go. I think so,
Okay.
maybe.
You want to be able to provide the intervention, the structure, whatever it is that you're doing. You want to be able to provide it. You want to be able to assess if it's working, and you want to be able to monitor. Do you need to continue? And then you want the kid to move on. Ultimately, that's the goal. And then the moving on is now they don't need this product, service, whatever. And they can probably transfer whatever it is that they've learned in the setting that you provided or the support that you provided in other contexts, because it solidified their understanding and their thinking. Right. So thinking about progress monitoring and the growth of our students and how we can track, we talked about these 5: curriculum based measurements, SMART goal setting, formative assessments and feedback, visual data dashboards, and the last one, which I think is key. If you're going to do all the 4, you have to definitely have the 5th one. You have to sit and look at the data together and make some assumptions and some decisions. Which of these do you think you will try out in your school, in your classroom, in your setting? Which of these do you feel you're doing already? Maybe there's room to improve. Maybe, oh boy, I wish I did more of this and less of this. Which of these strategies would you like to be able to implement after we've had this conversation today? I'll leave that for you in the chat. I give you a little bit of time.
Yeah, tell us what you've been using, what you might try. Mimuna, can I add something to what you said as people are kind of sharing the chat around
Sure.
moving through learning sport? Of course, it doesn't mean that an autistic student they have autism. They have autism and for their lives. But it just what Maimuna is saying is that we want to see growth along the way. You shouldn't be providing the same intervention. Students gain skills and they grow. And um, a student with dyslexia potentially will only need accommodations and wouldn't need intervention after
Yeah.
they get the specific intervention for whatever amount of time they need. So, yeah, just clarifying that
Yep.
part. They still have dyslexia, but they have all the tools to be able to thrive um, with the strategies they need to be able to be successful without having intervention. So,
Great.
oh, we've got some things in the chat.
Yes, I love these responses. Visual data dashboards, informed PD.
Right.
Yes. Yes, I love these responses.
Does anyone have a good template for a data dashboards? Those are so hard to find. I know, Maymuna, you said your school, someone spent hours and days, right,
Hours and
developing.
days, hours and days. I'm trying to
Yeah.
replicate it myself. I might have to reach out to them and see if they'll be willing to pay, if like for me to pay them to do it, and
Yes.
then I can just use it because I've never seen anything like it, and it's very comprehensive.
Yep. And we're all over here making our own. I'm like, if we could just share what we have, we would save
Yes,
ourselves so much time. I know.
we really could. We really
Yeah.
could. Yeah.
Emily says, get creative with time and schedules.
Yes.
Be intentional about data analysis.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. 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 So that is it for me. Please be sure to join our upcoming sessions. Be sure to register so that if you would like a certificate of completion, we can get that to you. A big thank you again to our sponsor, Equip My School. As Lauren said, if you are someone who is looking for resources to be able to build out your programs, get in touch with Equip My School. My name again is Maymouna Sakho. I am the founder and CEO of Sakho Learning Consultancy. I support schools and individuals in developing their student support program. I coach and mentor aspiring leaders, and I am an administrator as well as an educator for the past couple of years. So let's get in touch and chat. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all for being here. I just dropped the Padlet in the chat. If you have any resources, and I'll be adding things throughout this series as well there, but please share them just so we can all, um, right, we can like find our way easier and not just
Mhm.
keep reinventing the wheel. And Maymuna, this was so wonderful. It's great to walk away with tangible strategies. So thank you so much. Thanks for
You are
being
welcome.
willing
So
to support. There it is.
here it
Just
is.
started this today, so
Yeah. So we'll get all this other stuff filled in too, so you can have some stuff on there.
yeah, for sure. But if you have
Yeah.
templates or different things that other people might use and you're willing to share, I think it just makes it easier for us all.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining. We hope to see you back next week. We're going to be talking about the
Thank
beauty of
you.
diversity. So join us.
Take
Nice
care.
speaking with
Thank you. Thank you,
you.
Andrew. Thank you,
Andrew.
Campbell. Thank you, Emily. Take care. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Liz. Take care.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but stay on, Maymuna.
Yes.
Thank you all. See you next week.